a terrifying bear-wolf cross to actual human Z's. Get ready for the scariest animal hybrids this world has ever seen. Introducing the liger, an absolute unit that's the result of a male lion breeding with a female tiger. Ligers are humongous creatures and have been known to stand more than 4 feet at the shoulder, stretch as long as 12 feet, and weigh up to 1,200 pounds. That's twice the size of a refrigerator and as heavy as a grand piano. For contrast, a purebred African lion on the larger side can grow to be 10 feet long and weigh up to 550 pounds. This easily makes the liger the biggest big cat in the world. Now, the liger's huge size comes down to a specific mix of genes it's inherited from its parents. A male lion must compete for breeding rights, so his genes promote growth in his offspring to ensure they survive. Usually, the genes of a lioness will inhibit the growth so that she can carry multiple offspring. But the genes of a tigress are geared towards producing singular offspring. That means they can't inhibit the male lion's growth genes in their offspring, leading to one massive liger. It's for this reason if you cross a male tiger with a lioness, you get tigons, which are much smaller and more aggressive than ligers. Sadly, because of this gene switch, ligers and tigons tend to have a lot of health problems and don't usually survive through infancy. As lions and tigers have no naturally overlapping habitats, ligers and tigons only exist in captivity, and it's currently thought there are less than 100 in the world. Considering how huge and aggressive these creatures can be, I'd say that's a good thing. Now you can probably guess what a growler bear is. Yep, it's a fierce and formidable mix of a grizzly bear and a polar bear. They're typically between 6.5 feet and 10 feet long and can weigh anywhere from 400 to 1,500 pounds. For comparison, a grizzly bear typically reaches 6.5 feet in length, while a polar bear can grow to about 10, meaning the growler bear comfortably sits between them in size. Interestingly, the growler bear can carry children and give birth to healthy cubs. This is unusual as most hybrid species' mixed genes render them infertile. While the exact number of growler bears isn't known, they do exist in the wild and sightings of them have become more common recently. This may be because unlike tigers and lions, grizzly and polar bear habitats overlap in the Arctic and Americas. This common ground has been increasing with time as global warming impacts the climate of the regions. It's been theorized that this increasing overlap, combined with the growler bear's ability to produce offspring, may mean they're the future of bear kind. This might be bad news for us though, as growlers are apparently more aggressive and much braver than grizzlies. Oh boy, camping is about to get real interesting. So now you know that hulking hybrids walk the surface of the earth, I think it's only fair to let you know that the ocean isn't any safer. This bizarre creature is known as a wholphin, and it's what happens when a whale breeds with a dolphin. To be more specific, it's what happens when a false killer whale breeds with a bottlenose dolphin, before you get too confused as to how that might work. In 1985, a wholphin was born to false killer whale Ianui Kahai and dolphin mother Punahele in the Honolulu Sea Life Park. The calf was named Kekaimalu, which means from the peaceful ocean. Though if you ask me, the resulting creature is a little too creepy looking for that name. Wholphins are certainly odd-looking creatures. Their heads resemble false killer whales, however the fins and nose are more dolphin-like, and those teeth are just straight up unsettling. Their color is also a steely gray, which is an interesting halfway point between the coloration of their parents. Before Kekaimalu was born, park handlers couldn't imagine a romance blossoming between her parents. After all, Ianui Kahai was 14 feet long and 2,000 pounds, whereas Punahele was 6 feet long and barely 400 pounds. That's what you get for underestimating the power of love, I guess. Kekaimalu grew up quickly and after just 2 years was larger than her mother. She's now fully grown and gave birth to her own 1/4 false killer whale wholphin calf in 2005. Love certainly does find a way. Many strange creatures elicit a sense of awe once you learn a little more about them. That is, unless they're these things. Ugh. What you're looking at right now is a pale red featherless species of chicken that's been intentionally bred in Israel. The species was apparently created by interbreeding naturally bare-necked chickens with broiler chickens. So what have these bizarre little goblins been bred for? Well, in the farming community, a naturally naked chicken saves workers from having to pluck the feathers once they've been culled. Additionally, when you're farming hundreds of fluffy birds that are all close together, they can generate a lot of heat. It's not uncommon for chickens to overheat and even die in crowded farms. A chicken without feathers aims to solve both of those problems. If you think this is all a little morbid, consider this. Someone bred a freakish species of bird just to make culling it easier and didn't even bother giving it a proper name. Man, looks like humans are the ugly ones here. Over in the world of cattle, there was a male steer who really stood out from his herd, and his name was, don't laugh, Knickers. At 6 foot 4 inches tall and 2,800 pounds, this Holstein Friesian steer was roughly the height of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and weighed about 11 times as much. That's some big knickers. But despite this steer's gargantuan size, even he couldn't compete with the man-made hybrid that is the Belgian Blue, sometimes called a super cow. I can see why. This beastly bovine looks like it could give the man of steel a run for his money. Now, super cows measure in at roughly 5 feet at the shoulder but can weigh more than 2,800 pounds. That means compared to knickers, they're carrying much more body weight on a much smaller frame, making them look jacked as hell. The species was bred into existence in the latter half of the 19th century when domesticated Belgian cattle were bred with imported British shorthorn bulls. It was found these cows were more likely to have a rare double musculature characteristic, which they were then bred for. The trait was a boon for butchers, as a Belgian Blue yields up to 80% more beef than that of a regular cow. Despite being such a useful creature for the farming industry, many claim the breeding of super cows is unethical. This is because many of the cows are so muscular, they have a hard time moving around and living comfortable lives. Belgian Blue meat seems too big for me anyway. I'm more of a grazer. If you think your dog is a troublemaker, boy, be thankful you've never had to house train a wolf dog. As the name suggests, these canines are the result of breeding wolves with regular domesticated dogs. Breeding is more likely to be successful between wolves and dog breeds that are already more wolf-like, such as Huskies, German Shepherds, and Malamutes. Wolf dogs don't occur in the wild very often, as wolves are generally territorial and untrusting of creatures outside their tight-knit packs. Wolf dogs themselves tend to be wilder and less predictable than regular dogs. This makes sense when you think about it. After all, dogs are just wolves humans have selectively bred over centuries to be calmer and easier to control. By breeding one with a wolf, you're kinda just undoing all the hard work we put into domesticating them. Wolf dogs can weigh up to 120 pounds and stand as tall as 3 feet at the shoulder. On average, this makes them about as tall as wolves, if a bit leaner. Don't let that fool you though. These semi-wild poochies have been known to jump over 8 feet in a single bound. Their closeness to wolves also means they prefer a diet of raw meat mixed with grain-free kibble. Yum. We're going from wild wolf dogs to curious cats with this next creature couple. A serval is an interesting kitty, being one of Africa's lesser-known predator cats. Unlike big cats, however, the serval only stands about 2 feet tall, weighs under 40 pounds, and has a head that looks just a little too small for its body. At this size, the cat is small enough that some very troubled breeders experimented with what it could mate with. This tawny tabby is a savanna cat and is the result of breeding a serval with a regular everyday house cat. The slender savanna cat is a little taller than your average moggy at about 1.5 feet tall, with the serval's distinct stripes and spots all over its fur. This distinctive appearance has made the savanna cat a popular pet, though it's reportedly much more territorial and aggressive than regular cats. A savanna cat can pose a danger to both owners and other pets, and for these reasons it's illegal to own one in certain U.S. states like Hawaii and Georgia. Servals have also been bred with caracals, which are noble-looking cats found in India and Africa. Caracals are roughly the same size as servals, and even though their habitats do overlap, caraval or cervical hybrids are exceptionally rare and have only ever been seen in captivity. However wild these crossbreeds may sound, don't be fooled. They're still cats through and through. Remember when you were little and your mom would say, "You are what you eat"? Well, that may not be true for us, but it certainly is for this little guy. Meet the green sea slug or the eastern emerald elysia when it's trying to show off. This unassuming gastropod can be found all along the United States eastern coast and can grow to be about 2.5 inches long. So what makes it a hybrid? Well, this greedy species has gobbled up so much algae over the centuries that it's developed the ability to produce its own chlorophyll, making it half slug, half plant. Chlorophyll is the substance that allows plants to convert sunlight into energy, effectively making the green sea slug the world's first solar-powered slug, as well as the first freaky plant-animal hybrid. It might help to think of the slug as more of a hybrid car than a hybrid animal. Hybrid cars can run on a mixture of both gas and electricity, and the sea slug is the same way. Except instead of gas and electricity, the slug runs on food and solar power. That's pretty impressive. Maybe in another 20 years it'll just run on batteries. Jaguars and lions are both incredibly imposing felines. Lions are muscular monsters with males typically weighing around 420 pounds, while jaguars are a little leaner at an average of 260 pounds. They're still the third largest big cat in the world and are more devious and sneaky hunters than the lion. Both cats are apex predators, meaning they're at the very top of their respective food chains. Lions can take down huge buffalo, while jaguars regularly prey on ferocious caiman. Imagine the offspring these two terrible hunters would produce. Now imagine it in stealth mode. These two cats are Jazara and Tsunami, and they're the offspring of Lioness Lola and Black Jaguar Diablo in Bear Creek Sanctuary. As lions primarily roam Africa and jaguars mainly stalk the Amazon, they may be the only jag lions in the world. As you can tell, Jazara has inherited his father's melanistic genes, meaning he has a higher than normal level of pigment-producing cells that make his fur jet black. Considering Jazara takes more after his jaguar father, he's likely more inclined to be a nighttime stealth hunting machine like him. With his dark coloring and that extra pinch of lion muscle, I'm certainly relieved there aren't more predators like him stalking the jungle. Sadly, Tsunami passed away at her home in Bear Creek in October 2022, leaving Jazara without her best friend. Must be lonely being one of a kind. I'm willing to bet that if you were out swimming in the ocean and saw a shark fin poking out of the water, you'd be pretty scared. Well, I'm here to tell you that if that shark fin has a little black tip at the top, you should be even more scared. The Australian black-tip shark lives primarily in warmer climates like, as its name suggests, the Australian coast, and can be identified by the little black tips on its fins. The shark comes in at around 5.2 feet, and while a shark of any size is scary, comparatively speaking, that's not that big. Regular black-tip sharks, however, usually live over 1,000 miles away from Australia. They grow to about 6.6 feet, but have been known to grow to as large as 8 feet. Australians should be pretty worried then that their comparatively dinky black-tip sharks have been having hybrid babies with the larger breed. A group of Australian researchers identified not one, not two, but 57 hybridized black-tip sharks not far from the northern Australian coast. It's theorized that, like the growler bear, the hybrid blacktip might be the result of changing climates and expanding habitats. This is especially worrying as regular blacktips are known to bite humans, as if Australians didn't have enough deadly animals to worry about already. Crikey. Sometimes it's just impossible to make a relationship work, especially if you're 22 times the size of the other. What? The next monstrosity we're about to meet is the Chidang-Dang. If you know anything about dog breeds, I bet your eyes are widening right now. That's because the average Great Dane stands between 30 and 34 inches tall and can weigh up to 200 pounds. But a Chihuahua tends to grow between 6 and 9 inches tall and weighs just 2 to 6 pounds. Just look at these two next to each other. As with several previous examples, intrepid breeders are the villains of this story, as they initially tried to breed a male Great Dane with a female Chihuahua. Ouch. After this, they attempted artificial insemination, but the little Chihuahua just couldn't carry the massive baby to term. Eventually, the breeders came to their senses and a male Chihuahua and female Great Dane mated. I can only assume a stepladder was involved somehow, but eventually, for God knows what reason, the Chadane was born. Sometimes more respectfully called the Great Mexican Dog, the resulting breed is strange. It has a long body and short, stubby legs with a large head that's shaped like that of a greyhound. The dogs are known to be loyal and friendly and typically grow to be twice the size of a Chihuahua, but still much smaller than a Great Dane. Now, it's not a bad dog, but I think these breeders were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. In the movies, the mighty Godzilla is supposed to reside at the bottom of the ocean, but from the look of this next creature, I think he might be on land. This is Yai, and he may be one very special croc. Yai is the only known hybrid crocodile in the world, his parents being a saltwater crocodile and a Siamese crocodile. But that's not the only record he holds. You see, Yai is a noticeably big boy. Just look at those other crocs next to him. Samut Prakan Zoo, which houses Yai, claimed that he held the Guinness World Record for largest crocodile in captivity, coming in at an overwhelming 19 feet 8 inches long and weighing over 2,645 pounds. Even scarier, Yai has apparently grown since then, and by some accounts is now 21 feet long. That'd be amazing if it were true.
What?
I did a little digging and I couldn't find any mention of that Guinness honor.
Do not waste my time.
Turns out the actual world record holder for biggest croc in captivity goes to Lolong, a 20-foot long saltwater croc from Bunawan in the Philippines. What's more, Samut Prakan is far from a sanctuary. Apart from being a zoo, it's also a crocodile farm, so yeah. It's been at the center of numerous controversies surrounding the conditions in which they keep their animals. A quick scroll through TripAdvisor reveals a long list of one-star reviews, many of which mention animals kept in cramped cages and forced to perform tricks. Yikes. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they exaggerated Yai's measurements just to boost tourism without giving a second thought to his well-being. If you love animals, don't go here. So far, the true hybrids we've looked at have had just two parents of different species. This next animal, however, is the work of humans dabbling in hybridization and using the results for their own gain. In 2019, scientists in China were able to successfully breed a pig with monkey genes in a lab environment, essentially creating the world's first monkey pig. While the piglets looked perfectly normal, a small portion of their genes came from cynomolgus monkeys, also known as crab-eating macaques. The goal of the hybrid wasn't to create a pig that loves eating crabs, though. It was to further our understanding of gene manipulation. The hope is that experiments like these will eventually allow scientists to grow human organs in animals for transplant purposes. Unfortunately, we still have a lot to learn, as the two monkey pigs sadly passed away within just 1 week of being born. But the experiment hadn't been in vain. The monkey DNA had been manipulated to produce a bright fluorescent protein so the cells could be easily observed in the pig's liver, spleen, heart, and lungs. If you think this whole thing sounds a little creepy, well, it's just the tip of the gene bird. What if you could combine monkeys, pigs, and people together?
You sure about that?
The Salk Institute is an international group of scientists that have been hard at work attempting to advance our understanding of genetic manipulation. Their end goal is similar to those of the previously mentioned Chinese scientists, to be able to one day grow human organs inside of animal donors. The Salk Institute, however, skipped a few steps. Instead of beginning with pigs carrying monkey DNA, they went straight to pigs with human DNA.
What?
Human cells were merged with a pig embryo, which was carried by a pig for 3 to 4 weeks. After this period, the embryo was removed so it could be studied in detail. Casting a wide net, the Salk Institute undertook a similar study which involved placing human cells into the embryo of a rhesus macaque monkey. This embryo was given even less time to develop, between just 1 and 2 weeks. Technically, these embryos were chimeras and not hybrids, as the creatures were merely one species with another's DNA inside it, rather than a 50-50 split crossbreed. Mixing human and animal DNA is extremely controversial and cannot be publicly funded in the US. Thus far, all funding has come from private donors, presumably billionaires that want to make flying monkey minions a reality. The results of all these tests conclude that we have a long way to go before artificial organ growth becomes a reality. In the pig-human embryo study, only about 1 in every 100,000 cells were human, which is 0.00001%. This means that right now, even if organs could be grown in donor animals, they'd contain so little human DNA that they'd be rejected by a human host. But in 2020, the most non-human human yet was created in Japan. Researchers were able to record a mouse embryo that contained 4% human cells, and while this is hugely impressive, the research still needs a lot of time to develop. Poor choice of words. Taking it up a level, one of the most bonkers hybrids is the human-Z, a cross between us humans and our closest relative, the chimpanzee. We share nearly 99% of our DNA with these animals, so creating one is hypothetically possible, and some scientists have even tried to bring one to life. Back in the 1900s, Russian geneticist Ilya Ivanov developed artificial insemination to successfully impregnate horses. From there, he began experimenting, crossbreeding wild animals with domestic ones, including mixing a zebra with a Przewalski horse. All this hybridizing gave him an idea, a truly messed up idea. In 1926, the Bolshevik government approved his journey to Guinea, where he planned to conduct an experiment so strange it would put Dr. Moreau to shame. He would create a creature half chimp, half man. On his expedition, he captured 13 apes and inseminated 3 of them with human sperm. To his disappointment, none of the chimps conceived. With 20 more captured animals, he returned to the Soviet Union to try the reverse of his original experiment and managed to find at least 5 women who, for some ungodly reason, volunteered. Yet there was a drawback. Only 1 ape survived the journey and was up to the task, and after inseminating the volunteers, Ivanov found that it too didn't work. In 1930, Ivanov's experiments came to an end with a widespread purge of scientists, and he was exiled to Kazakhstan, where he passed away 2 years later. Even so, his experiments may have been more fruitful than reported. Some claim that he did achieve success, but the resulting offspring were kept secret. These chimp-human creatures were later released or escaped from the laboratories into the jungles of Guinea, where their descendants live on to this day. What's more, in 2018, evolutionary psychologist Gordon Gallup recounted a story to The Sun that he'd heard from a primate research center in Orange Park, Florida. He described how apparently back in the 1920s a female chimp was inseminated with human sperm and not only succeeded in conceiving but actually gave birth to live young. However, as weeks passed and the child grew, the scientists had second thoughts and it was sadly euthanized. Oh dang. I couldn't find any more info on this mysterious hybrid though, so let's take this story with a big pinch of salt. Humans haven't just been getting up to monkey business with chimps. Evidence shows that tens of thousands of years ago, early humans interbred with our Neanderthal cousins, producing human-Neanderthal hybrids. These 2 species presumably came into contact with each other in the Middle East at least 80,000 years ago. This was confirmed in 2010 when the Neanderthal genome was sequenced, showing that as much as 1 to 4% of Eurasian people's DNA may be inherited from this extinct species. Wait, so humans are hybrids? Well, we are pretty scary. Neanderthals may not be the only ancestors that make up our hybrid DNA. Geneticist Eugene McCarthy hypothesized a completely different origin, stating that the human species emerged from chimps mating with, I'll give you a sec to guess, pigs.
What did he say?
McCarthy points out that we share a whole host of characteristics with swine that aren't found in any other primate. Take our nearly hairless bodies, protruding noses, and thick layer of fat just underneath the skin. Not to mention that pig skin tissues and heart valves are used in medicine because of their similarity and compatibility with the human body. McCarthy argues that after the initial porking between a male pig and female chimp, the resulting offspring underwent several generations of back crossing. The hybrid descendants would have lived among chimps and mated with them, becoming more like chimps and less like pigs with every new generation. Eventually, the chimp-pig hybrids would have become fertile enough to breed amongst themselves, resulting in the human species. Unsurprisingly, there isn't a huge amount of evidence to support McCarthy's theory. Both humans and chimps share a common ancestor with pigs, but that split happened around 80 to 100 million years ago. Also, chimps have 24 pairs of chromosomes, whereas pigs only have 19, which makes hybridizing very tricky. Plus, if it happened so much before, why aren't apes and pigs still going at it? The world should be chock-a-block with chimp-pig Z's. Although it's unlikely, I gotta say there is something captivating about the idea of porcine predecessors. The next time my wife calls me a pig, I'll proudly say, yes, I am. And hey, it could be worse. Back in the mid-2000s, an image of this hideous dog-woman hybrid suckling her little abomination circulated around the web. Some attributed the creature's existence to genetics going too far, whilst others blamed it on someone's over-familiarity with their pet. Let me put this dog to bed. It's a total hoax. That sculpture is actually an art piece from Patricia Piccinini's 2003 exhibition, We Are Family. Looks charming. Though I'm not done with ape hybrids just yet. In 1996, conservationists Peter Jenkins and Liza Gadsby were roaming around Mvok Zoo in Cameroon when they spotted this unusual-looking ape, which they believed was a hybrid between chimp and gorilla. While this claim was never verified, stories of this supposed hybrid date back to 1890, when explorer Paul du Chaillu was navigating the jungles of equatorial Africa. Wandering through a forest, he heard a peculiar cry, "Kula, Kulu," echoing through the trees above. He drew his gun and the beast fell to the ground. It had a round head, a black face, high cheekbones, and wasn't recognizably gorilla or chimpanzee. Perplexed, Dr. Chaillu spoke with locals who identified the animal as Kulakamba due to its distinctive call. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, more European colonizers piled into Africa to document the variety of primates. This led to confusion and debate over how many species and subspecies should be classified as either chimps or gorillas. Amidst the chaos, some speculated that the creatures they encountered might be hybrids, half chimp, half gorilla, giving rise to the legendary Kulakamba. Specimens were captured and brought to European zoos where they were declared to be these hybrid creatures. But as primatologists refined their methods of categorizing species and genetic testing became more widespread, the tales of the Kulakamba faded into myth. Previous examples of so-called hybrids were dismissed as unusually large chimps or small gorillas. That being said, the possibility of such a creature still remains theoretically plausible. Chimps and gorillas are closely related, and their natural ranges do overlap in certain areas. In extremely rare instances, there have been reports of chimps preying on gorillas. If only we could get chimps to stop eating their relatives and start, wanting them, then we'd be getting somewhere. I was doom scrolling through TikTok when I found this account, Official TikTok Science, purporting to show some truly bizarre and real animal hybrids. From a bear wolf to a cat bat, and this very creepy looking man goat. Look through the comments and a whole bunch of folks believe these freakish fauna to be the real deal.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not?
So are they? To my eyes, none of this looks like AI, so that can't be it. So I did some sleuthing and realized that the animals are real, but they're just unusual looking. TikTok Science is only pretending they're hybrids. That bear wolf is probably just a sick hyena. The cat bat is a lycoy, a rare breed of cat with a genetic condition called hypertrichosis, which gives them thin, coarse fur. But what about that man goat? Well, it's actually a taxidermy model created by Welsh artist Adele Morse in 2018, who created the equally disturbing stoned fox. A more lovable pack of canines are those direwolves from Game of Thrones. And guess what? They're real! And double guess what? They're hybrids. You might have heard the news in April 2024 that Colossal Biosciences had brought these animals back from extinction. See, direwolves, aside from appearing in A Song of Ice and Fire, were large predators that roamed across North America during the Pleistocene epoch, around 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago. They dwarfed modern gray wolves, standing up to 4 feet tall and measuring 6 feet in length. But these big beasts' extinction wasn't as permanent as first thought. Over time, their fossilized remains were discovered still containing extracts of their ancient DNA, including a 13,000-year-old tooth found in Sheridan Cave, Ohio, and a 72,000-year-old ear bone from American Falls, Idaho. Scientists at Colossal analyzed samples and compared the DNA to its closest living relative, the gray wolf. They found 20 differences in 14 genes that gave the direwolf a bigger frame, a white coat, a wider head, larger teeth, and stronger legs. Next, scientists took the gray wolf's endothelial progenitor cells that line the blood vessels, and edited 14 genes in these cells to give them these direwolf traits. They then created embryos that were a combination of gray wolf and direwolf and plonked them into domestic dogs to gestate. Scientists did this 3 separate times, resulting in the births of Romulus and Remus in October 2024 and Khaleesi in January 2025. And some incredibly cute promos from Colossal. Aww. At just 6 months, Romulus and Remus measured nearly 4 feet in length and weighed around 80 pounds, and are expected to reach 6 feet and 150 pounds when fully mature, with the same going for little Khaleesi. Ooey. This isn't exactly full-on de-extinction though, since they aren't full-on direwolves. They're gray wolves with modified genes, a hybrid of the 2 species. Today, the siblings are kept in a 2,000-acre enclosure somewhere in North USA, far from prying eyes. They reportedly show wolf-like behaviors like being shy around humans and running into dark places to hide. Even so, wild gray wolves are used to roaming over 50 to 1,000 square miles and hunting for survival. What kind of life will these mixed-up mutts really have? If you watched Animals That Came Back from Extinction, then you'll know all about how direwolves aren't the only animals Colossal are trying to de-extinct. They're working on resurrecting dodos, thylacines, and of course, the woolly mammoth. In their mad pursuit to bring this epic elephantine back, they've experimented with rodents and, as a byproduct, come up with another hybrid, woolly mice.
That's a lie, and it's nice.
Oh man, I wish they looked like that. Colossal claims they edited 8 of their genes. 7 were mouse genes altered to give them that thick bushy fur, and the 8th was an added mammoth gene that helped increase their body fat to cope with chilly temperatures. In the end, you just get really fluffy mice. Also seem to be more about making adorable animals than anything that can actually survive. In 2021, vets at an animal rehabilitation center were treating a new dog that had been brought in after being hit by a car. It was weird. She looked and barked like a dog, but had a long, foxy face and pointy ears. She liked to climb bushes and refused to eat dog food, instead preferring to munch on rats. Wondering what kind of animal this was, they contacted geneticists who over 6 months ran some tests on the strange beast. They took a look at her nuclear DNA, which contains information from both parents, and found that the animal was, in fact, a dog-fox hybrid. Whoa, I guess anything is possible. She had 76 chromosomes, falling between the dog's 78 and the fox's 74. Her mother was a pampas fox, which is actually more closely related to canids like wolves and jackals than true foxes like the red fox. Even so, the domestic dog and the pampas fox split from the family tree over 6.7 million years ago. You're just as likely to make a human Z. They call the little creature a dachshund, a combination of, you guessed it, dog and Graxium do Campo, a Portuguese name for pampas fox. Sadly, in March 2023, the dachshund passed away at a state-run facility due to unknown causes. So why the heck did a dog and fox get it on? Well, the dachshund's father was probably a stray, and in South America, humans are encroaching on habitats to make way for farmland and housing, meaning there's more contact between domestic and wild animals, making barking mad hybrids like the dachshund more likely. And while no doubt adorable, any more dachshunds could introduce new diseases and genetic weaknesses into the pampas population. How will we cope? So far, we've talked about all sorts of marvelous cats, but there's one big cat we haven't looked at. Let's go back to 1959, Hanshin Park Zoo in Kobe, Japan, where 5 strange cubs were born. As they grew bigger, they had spots like a leopard, but they were big and bulky, and the male cub Johnny had a mane just like a lion. They were leopons, a cross between a male leopard and a female lion, not to be confused with a lionard, a cross between a female leopard and male lion. There isn't a huge amount of info about these hybrids other than they spent their lives in captivity and grew overweight from being kept in cages. Now, lions and leopards do coexist in the wild, but due to living in different habitats, they tend to leave each other well enough alone. I think it's best we try and keep it that way. So are human-animal chimeras the way of the future? Are animal hybrids cool or a little disturbing? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.